So, as I said in my 45 seconds, the business has been going 2 years. We are a HR consultancy. We do provide expert HR advice to businesses when they need it. I'd like to do it earlier, but generally these days the phone rings when there's an emergency that needs sorting out. But we do take care of people's problems for them, and we do like to think of ourselves as a HR department, not there all the time, but there when you need us. So today, with a Halloween theme, I thought I'd go into my HR casebook and give you some tales of the unexpected as to some of the things I've dealt with recently and over the years. So hang on, here we go. Right, if we think about life in work, we often find that things can happen outside of work that come into the workplace and vice versa. So if we look at persistence, belittling, incidences, there was a case I dealt with where an employee was constantly belittled by their colleague. So they took their lunchtime dinner and they poured it all over them, turned around to me, who was also sat in the canteen, and said, "Don't worry, I'll save you time. I know exactly where I'm going, to the door." It was well worth it just to humiliate him for once. On the other hand, there was a case recently reported that's gone through tribunal where a supervisor was taking the opportunity to humiliate his employee by referring to a personal characteristic. And he deliberately did it, and he confirmed this under oath. So the 3 judges who had the same personal characteristic, there's a clue in the picture, agreed with the employee and said that baldness, as it was a predominantly gender-related condition, not unique to men, but generally male, it was a discrimination by gender, and the companies having to pay out for their supervisors' choice of personal characteristics. If we look at trust, issues in trust in the workplace, these were cases that I've dealt with in various organisations over the year. And they all related to people in positions of trust, because they were all managers of one variety or another, who lost their jobs over these issues. There was the supervisor who thought that he would help himself without permission to somebody's personal tools. And that gave the employee the ability to put in a formal complaint, which resulted in dismissal of the supervisor for taking property without permission. The vending machine that broke during the shift, and an supervisor helped themselves to Mars bars, witnessed by other people. He didn't pay for it. He didn't even make other people aware, other than those who witnessed him, that he'd taken it without permission and without paying. Off he jolly well went. And there was a team member who brought in some lovely donuts for her to share with people, and she was offering them round to the people she wished to share those donuts with. But a manager walking past who helped himself to a donut when they were left unattended found himself in a disciplinary for helping himself without permission to somebody's personal property. Very easy to get rid of managers when they behave foolishly in front of their employees. And then there is, when do you think about publicity? One of the reasons given for dismissals can be unwanted reputational damage. There was a case I dealt with in Scotland where an employer was rather preoccupied by having 3 relationships, 3 households and 3 jobs. No wonder he was failing his sales performances. We dismissed him because we had sufficient information to do so, but 2 weeks later he appeared on the front page of the Scotsman with all his life in tatters as people realised what a remarkable life he was leading. I'm running so many households and being absolutely tired out for one reason or another. We tried the effort of doing so. On the other hand, an employee that has a fracas on Friday night in McDonald's at the end of a really good night out that wasn't work related, found themselves in court having to, under oath, give their name of the employer that they worked for. Subsequently, the article appeared on page 24 of the Worcester News. This is not a reason to say there's brand reputational damage when somebody is under oath to say where they work. So there was no reason for the rather agitated team leader to do anything other than say, hard night, better luck next time. And the unfortunate lady in the photo is a very famous case in the external world to me. She is Justine Sacco. She was a PR relations expert in a company in America. And whilst bored in Heathrow one day, she said that she was She's tweeted out to her friends that she was about to board a plane to Africa and she hoped she wouldn't get AIDS. This went viral worldwide, and while she was in the air, the people around the world joined in the amusing activity of trying to work out where she was going to land. And this is the photo taken by somebody who entered that activity of her opening her phone and starting to get the message from people saying, I can't believe you've been fired whilst you've been flying to Africa. Such is the reputational damage given her position in her business, responsible for social media, that she did indeed get fired for tweeting inappropriate comments. And then if we look at accountability, there was the employee who was very devoted to his darts. Unfortunately, he worked the second shift and his darts team moved up the league, which moved from a Sunday night to a Wednesday night. So he used to disappear during shift to go and play in his league matches. When they won the trophy and it appeared in the local newspaper, it was game over for him. Then there was the apprentice who really didn't want to be an apprentice. So he went home and he told his mum and dad, not really Richard Briers, that he'd been sacked because we decided that we wanted to keep the people who were married with children in work and not him. They appeared and we had the terrible job of telling them that their son may not have told them the exact truth. And we suggest they ask to see a copy of his dismissal letter to explain what had gone on. And then if you deal with a relationship with a young person and it goes wrong and he can't see his children and he ends up in prison, what do? Do you sack him because he's not available to you? Or do you look at the investment you've made in that employee and you actually go, a 12-week prison sentence for something that's not work-related and is not likely to happen in the workplace? I'm not going to throw away 4 years of investment into somebody that is worthwhile having as an employee. And that is exactly what we did with an apprentice who couldn't access his children and just lost it with the new dad that had moved in. And more recently, somebody went to Blackpool with 3 of their manager friends from work, having tested positive for COVID. They all returned, knowing full well that the person was positive when they went. They all subsequently got COVID. They all claimed company sick pay. They all found themselves being disciplined for personal gain because they deliberately put themselves in harm's way to claim COVID sick pay when they shouldn't really have been in a position to do that. If you get COVID and you don't know how you're getting it, that's one thing. But if you deliberately go with somebody from work who's positive, don't be surprised that you may find yourself in a disciplinary. And then there is what you do when you go and see other people on their sites. There was a case last year where an employee was sent in his cab to a site, and the rules of the site were very clear that whilst on this site, you had to wear your mask, even if you were just sat in your vehicle, which is what happened. He was seen sitting in his vehicle without his mask on, which was not what the COVID rules for the site required at the time. And he was amazed when his employers had to follow through, because of a £300,000 contract at stake, in removing him from his employment for failing to follow a reasonable instruction for site health and safety at the time, even though he was sat in his own cab. And then there are the cases of being unhelpful or abusive to your clients, and then you get the phone call saying, I do not like the way your employees are talking to me. Or they arrive on site smelling of alcohol, and the customer cannot get on the phone fast enough to make you aware that your employees are not doing what you would expect them to be doing on your customer's sites. And some of the substantial reason becomes the reason why they're leaving your employment. It's not necessarily that you've had the problem, but the risk to your business in you're not meeting your customers' expectations can result in dismissals of employees. So as a quick round of some of the things that can go wrong in the workplace or come into the workplace and cause problems. As I say, we are a HR consultancy. We can do this by providing various support services where it's on a retained basis, where you pay a fixed sum each month and then you have the support that you require. Or you may just need a one-off help because you don't generally have HR issues. You may just want to update your contracts of employment and your policies and processes, and they do change regularly. There's been over 120 changes since 2020 in various employment laws. You may be undergoing a project, and project in my world is things like restructuring, reorganisations, 2P, transfers in or out. Unfortunately, redundancies can also feature in there. But projects can also involve rolling out and implementing appraisal systems. And maybe the training and development. Please, if you promote somebody into a management, they don't automatically come fully equipped with the skills needed to manage the people they suddenly find themselves in charge with. And some basic instruction very often is all they need. And depending on how you're growing, if your business is growing, you may well benefit from HR support systems that allow you to get employees to clock in and clock out using their phones, as well as having all the records in one place that they can see, and so can you, so nobody ever has to lose anything. So if you can help me in any way to help anybody who employs roughly 50 to 100 employees, they tend to be in manufacturing, hospitality, retail, industrial settings, then I'm sure some of those case stories may well ring true with one or more of your clients. Thank you for your time. Any questions?